wants. Again, the irony of mirroring this with what Glenn went through after a crappy end of the season and the pre-season with the players he wanted. And if it starts poorly, he won't last 9 games, let alone 29. And
well, I was gonna ask you, why is it that gone are the years that an Alex Ferguson could get 3 years to make it right at Man United, and then as I was watching the match today, because obviously I couldn't watch it live, so I watched it before I came on, and lots of empty seats. And the simple truth of the matter is the reason why you're not going to see an environment where managers are given multiple years to get it right is because you simply cannot afford to have empty seats like you had today. You had this weekend.
Instant gratification is no different to the U.S. sports landscape. But you know, going back to Ferguson, I think in his 4th year was when he started to feel the heat. So surprisingly, he was given a lot of time, and he had 4.5 years of absolutely doing nothing and winning nothing. Yeah. Granted, there was no European qualification at that point because we were under the ban after Heysel. But I think, was it 89 or 90 when he won the FA Cup, 91 he won the European Cup Winners' Cup. And then it was just gravy from that point. You know, a year later the Premier League started and they won it in the first season, and they never had to look back. But the one thing that's really interesting to remember is Spurs let the guy go that went and drove the marketing brand that was Manchester United. And, you know, is that our missed opportunity? Granted, you know, Irving Scholar interviewed Ferguson for the job when Berkey left, and who knows what would have happened if he had taken it. We'd probably fired him after a year and he'd gone to United, and the same thing would have happened, so it's a moot point. But I think the bigger picture is, will we break this rhythm of this hiring and firing? You got to look back at the last 10 years, and the only person that had any staying power was Harry Redknapp.
Yeah.
And Davey alludes to that in the piece he wrote, and granted, everyone remembers the end of the Redknapp era, and that's almost unforgivable because they believe his head was turned.
Yeah.
We know otherwise.
But he came into a great situation. He came into a great situation. So he was on a free roll, basically, because they were in the relegation zone when he took over the club.
Yeah, and he said, my job wasn't difficult. I just needed to get, you know, I had a great set of players, and everyone will tell you that. He had a good set of players. He just had to motivate them to win.
That's right.
His job was not difficult, but one day Ramos found it difficult. He couldn't motivate them, and we had 2 points from 8 games.
Well,
we, you know, if Harry had been there at the beginning of the season, again, I highlight the point. Ramos left after 8 games because of a poor start to the season, based on the end of the season, which was poor, after we lost in the League Cup final. See a pattern here, fellas? Mm-hmm. That's why I'm saying it won't be 29 games if he doesn't do well. It'll be 9.
We've had a little bit of a discussion, too, about, you know, maybe we need an English manager. Maybe this is an Argentine thing. I've been reading some things about Pellegrini lately, and not to bring up a different club's woes, but as an Argentine, one of the biggest things that he gets slated about is that there is no plan B. Sound familiar? Poch doesn't have one either. We talked about Van Gaal here just recently, and 3 at the back, 4 at the back, play with the midfield. This guy forward, this guy back. Ashley Young all of a sudden can play football when everybody thought he was dead and buried.
Player of the game, player of the match yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3 assists and a goal. And I'm reading this article that was written by 2 ESPN FC writers, Simon Curtis and David Mooney. And there's a little excerpt in here. They're just kind of bantering back and forth and asking each other questions about Pellegrini and his situation. And they're talking about the realistic possibility of him being sacked before this season ends. And he says, I'd be very surprised. He's in a bizarre situation of not really having been praised enough for the season. He was successful and been absolutely hammered for this year, which fairly has been poor. Simon is right when he says City's owners aren't especially knee-jerk, but that the recent record of 4 defeats in 5, the only win coming against a team that was down to 10 men for 89 minutes, speaks volumes. And then here's the last sentence, which really puts a pinpoint on it. There becomes a point where his position becomes untenable, even if there's no replacement available. So one of the things that I've always kind of hung my hat on when it came to Pochettino, because he was the guy that I wanted to have in the position that he's in now, and he's here, and I don't want to see him leave. I really don't. I want him to be successful. But our Spurs, even if it's like Simon says, if this continues to backslide a little bit as the season ends, and we look completely disinterested, and then we start off like a shower of shit next year, even if there's no, apparent replacement available in terms of managers, do you just go ahead and sack Pochettino and eat the season right then and there? Because all of his coaches are going to leave with him. Stefan Freund, I don't think, is going to be back with the club after this season. Who do you even think about? There's interim managers possibly to be had, but who is that person?
It can't be answered really. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that sticking with what we have and just seeing how things unfold truly is the best. We'll get the outcome that we all want, but I genuinely believe that it is the best option that we have at this time. It's the best grouping of decisions that we can make. I think in the long run.
I think the thing that grinds me the most is that I think Pochettino is the perfect players manager. I think he inspires the kids. I think because of that, he knows how to define leadership with some of the older guys. He knows how to banter about and have a good time during practice and workouts for as ungodly, physical as they are. I mean, these guys.
Is he really? Is he really with such a lack of results recently?
You know what? I don't know. How do you translate it to what's going on the pitch? My point being, I would sell a kidney if he would switch up the formation when it's called for.
Go on, son. Go on.
This is what really grinds. I think he would be the perfect manager.
Get your scalpel out, mate.
Get in there, Kenny.
If he would just go 4-2, 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 or something different when the situation calls for it. He is very AVB-like in that it's 4-2-3-1. Yeah. This is how we're going to play. A lot of people were, AVB did this. People slated him. Now, he's got a better record than. Let me tell you what. AVB's football was pathetically boring. There was nothing flair, nothing Tottenham about it whatsoever. 1-0 to the Arsenal is not how I want to win games. I would rather lose.
Who played the Tottenham way in recent years?
I don't think anybody's played the Tottenham. I mean,
thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Of course Harry did.
But again, I'll get slated because I know there are enough Harry haters out there.
Bale Modric.
Well, it's not just Bale Modric. He got the best out of ordinary players.
I would absolutely.
Jesus Christ, we had Palacios, we had Basson, we had Chimbonda.
Yeah.
He figured it out.
Go look at that League Cup final lineup, and that will tell you how much he got out of players. That was generally speaking a dreadful lineup, with the exception of Berber.
09, you mean 09?
Yeah.
United.
Oh wait, was that one day Ramos's?
Ramos was 08.
Actually, I tell a lie. It was in fairness to Ramos.
But it's pretty much the same team.
Yeah.
I know it was.
And Harry played 4-4-2. He was old-fashioned in that regard, and we scored for fun at times. But there were times it went tits up. Yeah. But we didn't play boring football.
Mm-hmm. No.
And you can say what you want about him taking his eye off the ball and the England job, the distractions, the court case, what have you. Is losing the 10 points a cardinal sin? The gap we had over Arsenal in third place, is that the cardinal sin? Look what Arsenal's done so far since they lost to us on the 7th of February. They've won every bloody game.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You said you didn't want to look at that when I mentioned it earlier.
I know.
Kenny, we're all
just stick a broken bottle in my heart. But
we're all hypocrites.
But that goes down to, and the F word gets bandied around with us as being fickle, and anyone can interpret this as we love Harry, we hate Posh, and that's not what we're saying at all. We're just looking at the recent history in the last 5 years. But here's the deal. Wenger has been in charge of that team for 19 years now?
Yeah.
And the Woolwich are as they're more fickle than us. How many times have they been saying finger out throughout the season, and now they're so far up his ass it's not funny, because almost to Sunday where they thought they had an outside chance of winning the title. That's not going to happen. Chelsea's not going to slip up at this point. But you know what? They're second. And
we're all that way.
Runners up, and we took 4 bloody points off them, but we can't take the points of Burnley and Aston Villa, who were struggling at the wrong end of the table, and that's why I'm so bloody worried about Hull. They're going to be in a scrap when we see them, and we'll just be shit.
I'm hoping they hit a run of form for the next 3 weeks.
I feel sorry for Chicago Spurs. Shout out to those guys who took about 12 people there. They got a lot of great exposure for their club, and well done to them. But
such a shame.
That turgid rubbish.
Yeah. I told somebody today, fellas, and this speaks to the fact that there's lots of blame to go around. And I was talking about Eriksson, and I was just talking about how I wish that he is a good player, but I wish that he was more these bouts of sort of sublime things that he does. Yeah, I just wish that he was consistent. I wish that he was, I wish, like everybody, that he was genuinely great. And a great player to me isn't a player that needs to be reliant on other players. Harry Kane has scored 29 goals this year in spite of a very poor performing midfield, right? And let me go back to what you spoke about just a few minutes ago. Pochettino, in my mind, a great manager should have a preferred system in mind, but should be skillful and adept enough to manage around with what he has, to be able to evaluate players, to be able to see them for what they're worth, and if they don't fit into his system, make subtle nuances to get the most out of them until he has more time with them and more time to get players that he thinks better fits his preferred style. And we have, and another thing to add to that, which is a bit of a frustration about Pochettino, is that not only is he sticking with that formation, but he's sticking with the same stale performing players. How can we keep on going back to Chadley and Townsend? How can we continue to do that? Look at what Sherwood, and I say this with a kind of tongue in cheek and smile on my face, but look, he just realized that he was smart enough to realize and say, well, Lambert had it wrong, and what do I have here to make this work? Yeah. And one thing about Harry, you talked about him earlier, and you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. He didn't oversimplify. I mean, he just oversimplified things. It's not fucking rocket science at the end of the day, is it? Now it's just football.
How has Benteke been so shit under Lambert all season, and since Sherwood has taken over, the man's on fire, scoring for fun?
You're right. Hey, I want to share a story with you guys because I think it's a bit funny, and it does mix in my Masters experience with finding out the score. So the Masters, and
we were wondering if you let out an almighty fuck at the end of the game.
Well, there's a video.
Right on Tiger's backswing.
There's a video. I sat on the 14th hole on the final day, and we sat literally right on the tee box. And so there's actually a video that I posted on Twitter. I posted on Twitter? I don't know whether I did or not. I've shared it with you. But anyway, so after Spieth tees off, I'm like 4 feet away from him, and I stand up, because I'm mugging for the camera without question, and I put my hands up. And I joked to somebody today and said, if you love Tottenham, stand up. And but how I found out on day one on Saturday about the score, because they do not let. It's like stepping back in time, and they're very, very serious about not having any digital devices. There was not a cell phone in that place, but AT&T is a sponsor, and tucked way back in a number of different places are banks of these courtesy phones. So, and in this day and age, I mean, do you remember phone numbers? I don't. I mean, there's only a few phone numbers that I knew, and I think my wife was out of pocket, so I decided to call my daughter. And it was I wasn't even sure the time because I didn't even have a watch, and so I called my daughter and I said, can you look up the Spurs score for me? And so I guided her through. That's serious. I guided her through the SoccerNet score, and she's going, okay, and I'm giving her instructions. She's following along, and I hear this, oh, and I'm like, it's bad, isn't it? She goes, yeah, Spurs are down 1-0. And it's in the 90th minute. So then I make her click through to get to the game cast so she can My 16-year-old daughter's reading me the lineup, is telling me who scored, is telling me who the subs are, and I swear to God, my next 3.5 hours of this bucket list